Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, in honor of the Global Sinnoh Tour, I'm going to be doing a triple Origin Form theme team in the Open Master League. On the lead, the newly released Origin Form Palkia with its exclusive legacy move, Spatial Rend. On the save switch, Origin Dialga with its new exclusive legacy move, Roar of Time. And as the closer, the oldest Origin Form in the game, Origin Form Giratina. It goes without saying, Triple Dragon, not a strategy I'd recommend for climbing Elo in the Open Master League, but against all odds, I was able to defeat a couple fairy types and go 9-6 along the way. Hopping to the first match, we see the best possible lead Palkia Origin into Kyogre. Opponent save switches into Lugia, and I'm going to respond with Dialga Origin. Dialga Origin has access to Roar of Time, which is the same stats as Draco Meteor, but it doesn't debuff your attack to use it. My opponent builds up to the Aeroblast, they bait with the Sky Attack, I'm farming up, and I'm going for the Roar of Time. Roar of Time will not knock out, but it will do quite a lot of damage, so my opponent is going to commit the shield. I continue to farm. Opponent, they're going for another Sky Attack, and this is not threatening to the Dialga Origin whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I can tank that, make it to the Roar of Time, and now they have a choice. Are they willing to double shield Lugia? Yes, they are. They double shield Lugia for switch, and I decide to send in Palkia. I go for the Aqua Tail as soon as I get it. I'm hoping that this is going to be enough to knock out, but Lugia on 1 HP, able to withstand that damage. That's extremely unfortunate for me, and I'm ending up shielding the Aeroblast. In the back, they have Xerneas, and this is going to be a bit awkward, as Xerneas, of course, beats the entire team. But in this endgame, I have Giratina Origin, and I'm up a shield. The Shadow Ball is going to connect. That hits for some pretty heavy damage. I continue to farm with my Giratina, and I make it to another Shadow Ball. This is going to KO Kyogre. They were unable to make it to a Blizzard. Back in comes the Xerneas. Xerneas farming up a ton of energy, and I'm able to make it to the Shadow Ball. This will do some very nice damage to this Xerneas. Xerneas, they're going to have to full send a Moonblast to pick up the knockout, but that's very okay with me, as they're going to need to make it to back-to-back charge attacks versus the Palkia, and that's just not going to happen. They would need to bait with a close combat and then land a Moonblast, but I can comfortably make it to an Aqua Tail, and the team that is triple weak to Xerneas defeats the Xerneas. Tough lead in the next match, Palkia Origin versus regular Dialga. I save switch into Dialga Origin, and my opponent is going to respond with Landorus Therian. Landorus will fire off the Sandsear Storm. This is a matchup where the extra bulk on the Dialga Origin is quite nice. I'm going to farm up past the Roar of Time and bait with the Iron Head. Opponent is going to be shielding up, and if they try and farm down, I can make it to another Iron Head, and they do try and farm down. This is very, very nice for me, as I'm able to force both shields from my opponent because they got greedy and tried to go for a farm down. They're firing off a Sandsear Storm, I'm farming up with the Palkia, and I'm going to commit a shield and hopefully get a farm down here before they make it to another move. Let's see, and I am able to get the farm down. That's big. In comes Dialga. I'm going to send in the Giratina. This is a losing matchup, but I was heavily debuffed on the Palkia, so I had to switch out. I'm firing off the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball is going to connect, and my opponent will need to go for an Iron Head if they want to pick up a knockout here. And that's exactly what they're going to do. I'm going to no shield. I'm saving my final shield for Palkia. In the back, it's Mewtwo. Mewtwo, not going to be a big fan of the Spatial Rend. This does not one-shot, but it should do enough damage that I can shield once and farm down, and I should be able to make it to an Aqua Tail before they make it to a Draco Meteor. Because they can potentially make it to an Iron Head, but due to the water subtyping, an Iron Head is not going to cut it. Palkia Origin makes it to the Aqua Tail, KOing Dialga, and despite a really tough lead in counter swap, we take the win. We see an absolute nightmare lead in the next match, Palkia Origin versus Xerneas. This is such a problem because this entire team loses to Xern. I save switch into Dialga Origin. Opponent is going to fire off the close combat. I shield, and they're not switching out. So whatever they have in back is not a big fan of Dialga. They're clearly wanting to get some damage on it before they switch. They're farming up. They're firing off another charge attack. I don't feel comfortable with shielding twice, so I am going to let this go. The close combat connects. In comes Zygarde. Zygarde looking for the farm down, and I fall short of the Roar of Time. Let's check their counts. Do they count correctly? They do not. They respect the Iron Head, And now, that's a very big break for me. As they don't have any more shields, I can send in the Palkia. I should just be able to pick up a knockout with the Spatial Rend. And then, in the endgame, I'm going to have Giratina Origin with a shield, and my opponent Xerneas no longer has one. That's pretty good news for me. I send in the Giratina, Xerneas, farming up energy. They're going to be fired off the Moonblast, and I'm going to commit the shield, and then look to throw one, and the Shadow Ball opponent waits a turn to try and potentially make a catch. In the back, they have Kyogre. The Kyogre just has absolutely nowhere to run versus this team. Opponent realizes I can overfarm and just win the game, so they concede the match. Amazing lead in the next match, Palkia Origin into Ho-Oh. Opponent save switches into their Dialga, and I respond with Dialga Origin. The Dialga mirror is a bit uncomfortable as the Dialga Origin player because you do lose charge attack priority. Granted, in this particular instance, my opponent does have an energy advantage, so charge attack priority won't come up. I'm just going to call the bait here. If they Draco, I can just farm down with Palkia. They go for the Iron Head, and a threat of an Iron Head on my Dialga forces them to throw all their energy. That's pretty nice for me, as now I can just get farm on Origin Palkia, so that way, if they have a dragon in the back, I can potentially go for a Spatial Rend. Opponent, they're waiting the timer. They don't really want to send in Ho-Oh to a Palkia. It's a Zacian. I'm going to send in Giratina. My opponent sends in Ho-Oh. I'm farming up, trying to go for the Shadow Ball, and I accidentally throw on alignment. I looked away from my phone, and I throw on alignment. Oh, that hurts to watch back. Oh, no. Here I call it, because they're never Brave Birding there. In that situation, they have to try and hope for an attack drop, so I can pretty safely no-shield, understanding that they just won't ever go for the Brave Bird. And from here, this should just be a winning position. I'm going to be shielding up. They're going to go for another debuff with the Sacred Fire. I'm going to look to switch into Palkia, look for the Dragon Breath, Snipe. They're able to save it on 1 HP and send in the Zacian. Zacian will be hit with the Aqua Tail. I have so much energy on this Palkia. I farm up to the back-to-back, and this game is just over. I have the back-to-back Aqua Tails here. They are not surviving 2 more Aqua Tails. They have so much energy on the Zacian, but they do not get to throw it. Triple Dragon defeating fairies left and right, and we take the win. Bit of a tricky lead in the next match, Palkia Origin into Zygarde. If the opponent goes for the crunch and does not get the debuff, Palkia Origin does win the zeros, but unfortunately they do get the debuff, so I'm going to go for the Spatial Rend and then look to switch out. Spatial Rend will be shielded, in comes Dialga, and there's the Xerneas. I just cannot escape the fairy types with this team. My opponent will always Moonblast here. If you're down a shield as the Xerneas, it's the principal play, so it's a pretty safe no shield by me, understanding that they just don't have a reason to close combat there, because if they do, then they're not going to survive an Iron Head, where in this case, they will be able to survive it. From here, I think I just let this go, and I try and win the game with Giratina. In comes Giratina. I'm going to get a farm down. I've gotten the Xerneas out of the way, but of course they still have the Zygarde, and the Zygarde is going to be a problem as it just absolutely destroys Giratina Origin. I continue to farm with the Giratina, shielding up. They already got 1 crunch debuff. I have to hope they don't get another. The crunch does not debuff. That's good news for me. I'm building up to the Shadow Ball, baiting with the Ominous Wind. Let's see what my opponent wants to do. They shield. I switch into the Palkia. I get them low. In comes Solgaleo. I'm farming up, and I'm firing off the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail does not do a lot of damage here, and the issue is I'm low enough they can probably go for a farm down. Spatial Rend should do more, so I'm going for the Spatial Rend. It's resisted, but it is going to get the opponent into the red. They get the farm down, leaving with 100 energy. In comes the Giratina. My only hope is to call a bait, so I call the Psychic Fangs. That's big. They fire off another charge attack. Can I farm down and leave with the Ominous Wind to win charge attack priority against all odds? I leave just short. Look at that. So close to the Ominous Wind, but so far. And we get KO'd by the Zygarde. Moving into the next match, leading Palkia Origin. What do you know? Another Zygarde. These battles took place in the mid to upper 3200s, so Zygarde is going to be on, it feels like, just about every single team, at least tonight, that is. Opponent is going to go for the crunch. The crunch does not debuff, which is quite nice, and now I can just win the zeros, if I'm not mistaken. I go for the Spatial Rend, they're going to let that through, and then we are going to get that farm down. Opponent sends in Kyogre. I'm going to bank a Spatial Rend, and then safe switch into Dialga Origin, and my opponent has their own Dialga in the back. I don't know if I can call the original Dialga Altered Dialga. I guess that's probably the correct term, considering with the Giratinas, there's an Altered form and an Origin form. So I guess I'll just switch to that for the rest of the video. I'm going for the Roar of Time. Opponent is going to commit the shield. They're going to have to throw a move here, because I am going to make it to an Iron Head. I do lose charge attack priority. Again, the Origin Dialga does have a lower attack stat than the Altered Dialga, so I am going to lose charge attack priority every single time in the mirror. The Iron Head is going to get them low. I switch into the Giratina and get the snipe, and there's just not a whole lot Kyogre is going to be able to do here, as I can make it to the Shadow Ball. They know I have the Spatial Run banked, so they can't afford to shield, and that just gets them way too low, and the opponent is going to concede the match. Moving into the next match, hitting Palkia into Zacian. Oh man, these fairy types are extremely tough. I'm going to get a small amount of energy on Palkia Origin, and then save switch into Dialga Origin. Farming up a lot of energy here with the Dialga. Opponent, they can go for the close combat. I do survive a close combat. Opponent is going to switch into their Altered Dialga as I fire off the Roar of Time. I was able to react in time, but my opponent predicts that, and they commit the shield. So that's a bit unfortunate for me, as the rest of the team is extremely weak to Dialga. I'm farming up. They should be short. This should only be the Iron Head, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to let that through and make it to the Spatial Rend. Okay. And now I just have to trust in Giratina up a shield and hope that they are running Wild Charge on the Zacian, because if they are, they're completely walled by the Giratina. In comes the Giratina. They're staying in this matchup. They're farming up energy, and it's a Zygarde in the back, and this game is over. Unfortunately, I can try and play my way out of this, but realistically, there is just not a way that I'm winning this. It's one of the reasons why Giratina has seen a lot less play since Zygarde has entered the meta, just due to the fact that Zygarde just shuts it down so completely. I'm up a shield and up a significant amount of energy, and it does not matter. I am unable to defeat this Zygarde. I go for the Ominous Wind. They're probably not counting. They're just understanding that they can win this game, so they are going to shield. I even get a catch, so I get the prediction right, but it's just not going to matter. I just don't have a way of winning this game anymore, unfortunately. They have back-to-back Wild Charges on the Zacian, so I just no shield. A bit unfortunate there, as I was able to play my way out of a tricky situation, but Zygarde was the get-out-of-jail-free card for my opponent. Tough lead in the next match, Palkia Origin into Altered Dialga. I save switch into Origin Dialga, and my opponent is staying in the matchup. I'm farming up. They're firing off an Iron Head here, and I'm just going to let this go. I'm perfectly fine with tanking an Iron Head. Opponent now going to send in Lugia. I'm farming up energy here and going for the Roar of Time. This does not knock out, but it makes its presence felt. Opponent is going to commit the shield. Dialga is now going to be met with a Sky Attack from the Lugia. Lugia does not want to deal with another Roar of Time. I'm going to send in Giratina, and I could go for a Shadow Ball right away, but I would actually rather have an energy advantage out of this matchup. So I'm going to shield, and then look to farm up till just shy of the back-to-back Ominous Winds, and go for the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball will pick up the knockout onto Lugia. In the back, they have their own Giratina Origin. The Battle of the Origins, but I brought 3 Origins to this game. Shadow Ball lands, in comes Palkia, opponent sends in Dialga, but they've already taken a lot of damage on this Altered Dialga. I can threaten with an Aqua Tail. They're forced to shield, they're firing off energy, and I'm fine with no shield in the Iron Head here. I should be able to win this game with my Giratina, as now I can send in the Giratina, get the Shadow Claw farm down, opponent no longer has a win con, and they resign the match. Palkia Origin into Ho-Oh, amazing lead. Opponent save switches into Zygarde, and I'm going to respond with my Origin Dialga. Arguably, I stayed in for a bit too long with the Palkia Origin, as now I am behind on energy. They build up to the Earthquake, and they bait with the Crunch. So that's a bit unfortunate for me. I'm farming up, and I am not baiting. I'm going straight for the Roar of Time. This will easily KO if they let it through. Opponent is going to commit the shield. I'm going to shield as they are at enough for an Earthquake, and my opponent full sends it. That's big. This means I get a full farm down, I get to exit very close to a Roar of Time, and that's going to do a lot of damage to Ho-Oh. But what I'm going to learn very shortly is throwing this charge attack is my lose con actually, because guess what's in the back? It's Altered Dialga, up a shield, and up energy, and in this moment, this game is instantly over. There is nothing I can do to win this game at this point. I'm going to go for the Aqua Tail just for chip damage, hoping they no shield, which they do, but it's just not going to matter, as they can just shield this Aqua Tail fully farmed down. I can switch, but I'm getting Draco'd. What I should have done in hindsight was saved that Roar of Time and just pivoted either into the Palkia or the Giratina, and then this game is a win. But allowing my opponent to basically throw away their Ho-Oh and save that energy was the lose con. Hopping into the final match, leading Palkia Origin into Shadow Dragonite. The Shadow Dragonite does perform quite a bit better versus the Palkia Origin than the regular. My opponent is going to grab the shield, I get the farm down, but I leave a lot less healthy than if I was going up against the regular Dragonite. My opponent is now going to send in Xerneas. I'm going to bank an Aqua Tail for later and send in Dialga Origin. Xerneas has farmed up a ton of energy. I'm already down a shield. This is the Pokemon I can't afford to see with this team, and they have Genesect. I'm going to farm up with Dialga and go for the Roar of Time on what should be charge attack priority if they went for the X-Scissor. And it is the charge attack priority, so that is big. A rare moment where knowing Genesect counts comes in handy. Opponent goes for the undercharge and gets the farm down. Ice Technoblast is extremely threatening to the Giratina. I'm going to try and go for a CMP sack swap. So I'm going to farm up with the Giratina, switch into the Palkia. It all comes down to this. Did I get the CMP sack swap? The Aqua Tail no shielded, but I did not. They get the farm down. My only hope in this game is tanking the Technoblast and just daring this Xerneas to make it to 2 attacks. My opponent is going to switch into the Xerneas. I'm baiting with the Ominous Wind, trying for any possible advantage. Opponent commits the shield. Giratina makes it to the Shadow Ball, and they never threw a charge attack. I still have the shield. They now can't win. Their Genesect gets farmed down. We were down a shield to a Xerneas when the whole team loses the Xerneas, and we take the win. All in all, I had a lot of fun getting to run the triple Origin theme team. As I mentioned at the start, I did go positive with it, but I do not recommend this team if you're looking to climb with Elo, as there's just a lot of Pokemon that it's very weak to. So overall, a very fun team, and individually, the Pokemon, especially the new Origins, are just extremely strong, so they were a lot of fun to run overall. So if you are looking to add to the Master League roster this weekend, the Dialga Origin and the Palkia Origin are some pretty good contenders. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated, so thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.